Don't know me, my name is Josué Rios, and today me and my group, David Meirelles, Bruno Custódio, and Pedro Pires, we're going to present to you a job about fossil fuels. Okay, but before we start the presentation, we need to talk about more the project, because this is the first project of 2 and maybe 3, and all these projects we're gonna talking about fuels, and this team is fuel. Okay, but let's start the presentation. We need to start talking about fuels. We need to know what is fuel. Okay, fuels is a substance that reacts with oxygen or another oxidizer. Okay, that release energy usually vigorously in the form of gases, flames, and heat. Okay, and it's supposed to realize of the energy contained there in the form of potential energy to a stable form. Okay, and the environment in which we live has so much and several different types of the fuels. Okay, and we can't talking about fuels and don't talking about environmental damage. Okay, and because they are not friendly with each other. Okay, and I separated two of the a lot of that. Okay, and we're talking about right now with. Okay. Among the environmental consequences of the industrialization process and the inherent and progressive consumption of fuels, there is an increase in air contamination by gases and particulate matter, resulting from the burning of these fuels, generating a series of impacts on human health. Other gases impact on a region beside the points from which they are emitted, such as acid rain. Okay? And the next example I separated for you is the global warming. Okay, I think everybody knows what is global warming. In Portuguese is aquecimento global. And what is global warming? In the simple way, global warming is like planet heating. Okay, so changing the weather and everything in the planet. Okay, so why global warming is so dangerous for the planet and why cause the global warming? Okay, is the use excessive of fuels in different parts of the world, okay, and with no control, and this causes the global warming. So, when I'm talking about fuels, I already talked to you what is fuels are, but not fossil fuels, and the definition of fossil fuels are in how it's formed, okay? Fossil fuels are formed through natural processes such as the composition of dead buried organisms, okay, or better, dead buried biological organisms, and fossil fuels contain high amounts of carbon in this composition, and this facilitates the combustion of some minerals and etc. Okay, some example of fossil fuels are natural gas and oil. Okay.
So, in this project, not only we will talk about how we use fossil fuels and what they are, but we are going to present to you how they evolve, how the use of fossil fuels evolved through the generations, and how they affected us and still affect us today. And the most important thing that we must start talk about is that for the most 80%, 99% of human history, the main source of energy to the world was muscle. And the fuel for muscle was food, usually plants. And plants ultimately get their energy from the sun. So almost all the energy we humans use comes from the sun, even fossil fuels. Because, as my colleague said, they are basically really old forms of plant and animal matter, and so originally they are from the sun. But that said, humans are a lot of things, but efficient energy converters isn't one of them. That's why you need a lot of humans to do a lot of work. It took a lot of power to build the pyramids, for example. And it couldn't be possible without some technological advances to do it. So, let's start talking about the first great technology advance that humanity discovered. and that was fire. So, in this case, fire was discovered by humanity by the combustion of wood. Fire allowed us to have a greater variety of food, so there's more fuel for our muscles, also giving us source of heat, protection from predators, and a way to create more tools, like hunting tools or other tools in general. And this led to metalwork. Metalwork is the one factor that is the most important factor to the next big technological advance, that was agriculture. So agriculture was directly influenced by the metalwork invention.
So now we are talking about food because one was one of the first food humanity used. Now I will talk a little what is wood, the chemical composition, and one of its things. Wood is a material produced from a fabric covered by woody plants with mechanical support functions or simply a tree. Being natural resistance and relatively light material, it is often used for the structural and supporting precision purpose. It's a solid organic material which is with a complex composition where the cellulose and cellulose fibers joined by lignite aluminate. The main components of food are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. It's considering that there are no possible difference between the different types of food. So there are several dangers with only wood, but as our work is on food, one of the dangers I will talk about is the danger of burning wood that is not yet very dry, because if it's wet with a lot of moisture, it can lead to carbon monoxide poisoning if burned over a long period of time. For this reason, the wood must be dried before using as fuel.
One important thing to remember is that the invention of fire allowed cultural innovation, geographical dispersion, and changes in diet and behavior, and allowed human activity to continue in the darkest and coldest hours of the night. But moving on, the next big change in how you used energy came with agriculture, as I said. And other names for agriculture we can call it domestication of plants. So the technology that we invented was the domestication of plants and animals. So by domesticating plants, we basically redirected the energy from the sun to create more nutritious and energy-producing food, and thus, again, more fuel for our muscles. After the invention of agriculture, the developments in human history kind of halted for a while. They didn't progress that much. But there was some minor progress. For example, by concentrating the energy density of wood in a process called carbonization, the image here, resulted a black substance we call charcoal. That was a minor progress. Another minor progress was the idea of adding oxygen to fires using bellows. But still, for the most part, power still came from muscle. The next big change in how we used energy only came with industrialization. Yes. So, industrialization, I don't know if you guys are into history, but I would like to ask you on a few, if you can explain briefly what is the Industrial Revolution, or what do you think is the Industrial Revolution? If any of you know, or can say a few words.
I will leave my commentary to someone else. Someone else. Go on.
I think you will do talk. All right. No problem. So, briefly, I think the best best way to put it is that the Industrial Revolution was a period of time where the technological and cultural advancements in human history advanced the most. I think that's a good explanation. But why that is important? Because it was in the industrialization that they utilized new forms of fuel in coal, oil, and natural gas. And one important thing to say again is that they are already existed and were already being used by ancient civilizations. For example, the Chinese during the Song Dynasty, if I'm not wrong, they were already using coal to work iron. But it was only in England where the use of coal really took off. And that is because of the steam engine. The steam engine was a technology that was invented during the Industrial Revolution. So I think you can associate why it was a perfect timing of the new technologies with already used fuels that created a new and more efficient way of using them. So Thomas Newcomen, the inventor of the steam engine, created the first machine to provide a large amount of power that didn't derive from water, wind, or muscle.
Now, just like wood, I will do the same to coal, and next will be electronic networks. So coal is the most widely fossil fuel in the world, and one of the first sources of energy used by man. We started using on a large scale in the period of industrial revolution, like my colleague said. Usual coal, more specifically, is a cementary rock, originated thousands of years ago and found underground in deposits of organic organisms without the presence of oxygen. The material originated from the vegetable remains is very and compact, suffering from the action of bacteria, as well as the pressure and heat conditions in the body environment, thus forming overtime of minerals. So about the chemical composition, carbon is the main compound of coal, sulfur, nitrogen, and oxygen are also found in the fossil fuel. The content of approximately 55 to 95% of carbon element means that are types of mineral coal, which are more or less rich in carbon. The carbon content is what defines a mineral geologically known as granite. So, the first rank of coal is peat. Peat is a practice of coal. Peat is a combination of partial decayed materials, and so all coal was peat at some point, but over time it changes. Peat is responsible for some 1/3 of all carbon in the soil, of the earth, which is why it is a practical and simple source of energy, but it's not as effective as the next types of coal, which is why it's not used in agricultural emissions of food.
Another rank of the coal I'm gonna talk to you right now is the lignite. The lignite is the most lowest rank of the coal, and they are the harmful for human health, and is usually exclusively for the create energy, electric energy, and that's why because have so much moisture and less heating power. Okay.
And now the next is run, bitumen. Bitumen is the dense metallic rock, usually black, but sometimes dark brown, often with well-defined bands of bright and blue material. It is used primarily as fuel in steam electric power generation. And to make coke, it's a derivative of bitumen. Known as steam coal in the UK, and historically used to raise steam in steam locomotives and ships. Bitumen coal as bitumen in its constitution, and bitumen is formed by hydrocarbons they easily flame, and is explained its proven use in the Industrial Revolution.
And the other rank is the anthracite. Okay, the highest rank of coal is a harder, glossy black coal used primarily for residential and commercial space heating, and also used in water treatment filters. Anthracite differs from bituminous coal in that contains little or not bitumen, which causes it burn with an almost invisible flame. But on the other hand, it is the coal with the highest carbon content, and the purest specimens are composed almost entirely of carbon. Okay, this may be linked to the fact the anthracite association with metamorphic rocks and not with sedimentary rocks like previous one. And this means that is the coal we find on deeper level of soil. Okay, in the other words, is the one that suffers the most pressure of the earth. Because anthracite relies high energy per kilo and burns without realizing a lot of soot, black smoke, and the most sought after coal and with the highest value.
So coal and air pollution. Air pollution from coal-fired power plants is linked with asthma, cancer, earth and clay elements, neurological problems, acid rain, global warming, and other severe environmental and public health impacts.
So, coal really was a big deal. It allowed Britain to dominate the textile industry, and the industry produced weapons and better weapons. For example, the steam-powered ships allowed Europeans to dominate Africa and parts of Asia. And that is just an example of how fossil fuels influenced and created the political and economical landscape we live in today. After the steam manufactured After the steam powered manufacturing, it was a short period of time until electricity came about. You'll know why I'm talking about electricity in just a moment. But electricity was really important because it was used not only for illumination and powering the machines, but it allowed humans to work after dark in a clean and efficient way. But again, why am I talking about electricity? Technically, it isn't a food. But I'm talking about it because although we might think of coal as the fuel of the 19th century, we still use a lot of today, as my colleagues talked about a little. We use coal to generate electric power. But in that matter, coal is much less efficient than oil and natural gas. Oil and natural gas were truly revolutionary, the way that they could not power only electric plants, ships and trains, but they could power the internal combustion engine that make cars and trucks possible.
Now, it will be petroleum. Petroleum is formed by the slow composition of organic matter that took millions of years. It is to be expected that most of its composition is hydrocarbons. Therefore, it is natural that elements derived from organic matter are found less in oil corruptly instructed. Petroleum is a viscous fluid formed by a complex mixture of organic compounds, and crude oil is usually black or dark brown, but it can also be yellowish, reddish, or greenish. Now, just like I said, the petroleum is a complex mixture of organic compounds, the main of which are hydrocarbons. It also contains some atoms of nitrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. And it also contains some metals. Now I will talk about oil deposits. Some of the dangers of oil are the fact that it contains nitrogen and sulfur. They are responsible for the release of toxic gas that pollute the atmosphere when burning petroleum-based foods. In the complete combustion of hydrocarbons, CO2 and water are released, while in incomplete carbon monoxide, water, and soot flow are released. Carbon monoxide and dioxide are greenhouse that if they are able to retain part of the sun infrared radiation, warming the planet. The problem is that large amounts of combustion of oil products is increasing the concentration of this oil. Intensifies the greenhouse effect and leading to global warming. In addition, sulfur and nitrogen oxides release in combustion ducts with rainwater from acid, such as sulfuric acid and nitric acid, which are strong as power version of acid rain. Now, to finalize fossil fuels, we have the natural gas. The natural gas, the main form of obtaining is natural deposits. It's a result of degradation over thousands of years of organic matter, such as animal, plants, and oils. Therefore, it's often found in reserves associated with petroleum. When it is in not associated state, when it's spread from petroleum, it consists on a clear energy from oil and its derivatives and other fossil fuels such as coal, because it contains less impurities. Natural gas should not be confused with liquefied petroleum gas, LPG. The latter, as the name implies, is a gas obtained through oil refining. The chemical composition, the natural gas is a compound formed mainly of methane gas, CH4, in this case, and various light hydrocarbons such as ethane, sulfur, and butane. In its constitution, there are also small quantities of other hydrocarbons, in addition to CO2 and hydrogen. Hydrogen sulfide, water, hydraulic acid, methanol, and others impurities. And now, the danger. Natural gas, by setting low pollutant emission rates, ends up contributing to the greenhouse effect and to the generation of acid rain. As it is a fossil fuel, it expels some pollutant into the atmosphere, for example, some nitrogen oxide, mainly NO2, which reacts with rainwater from form nitric acid and nitrous acid, which over time cause some environmental damage. In addition, nitrogen oxide is a major cause of smog and ozone depletion.
Well, by the end of the 20th century, we produce half a billion cars. We use 70 million barrels of oil per day. Keep in mind that oil isn't a renewable energy, it isn't a renewable fuel. So eventually it will run out. And why is that a problem? Because, as my colleague said, we still use fossil fuels as coal, natural gas, and oil, especially for generating electricity. And we use electricity for everything. In our gadgets, mobiles, computers, even to cook. And also there are already some cars that are moving by electricity. So electricity is really important in our current society. Although it is important, it is said to make this point that as of 2006, 40 to 50% of humans, mainly in the tropics, still relied on wood as their main fuel or main source of energy. And that says a lot about our society and how it is built and how it distributes wealth and how the oil industry works. My colleague Pedro will talk a little about that towards the end of our presentation. But first, let's dive a little into physics.
Okay. As we all know by now, fossil fuels need to go through a process called combustion to provide their energy potential. For combustion, it is. Oh, thank you. Very much better. Thank you. For combustion, besides fuel, it also needed an oxidant. It has to contain oxidant, that's it, and heat. Actually, speaking of heat, here's a table of the values of heat content for each of the fuels represented, pointing out that electricity is a natural fuel, as we probably know. Here it is, with asterisks. Number for electricity is perfectly efficient conversion of fuel into electricity. I don't know if you can read it from here. Yes? Good? Good. Okay. Thank you. There's also 1 barrel of oil means equal to 42 gallons, and the heat content. Coal. Yeah. So, coal. There's various types of coal, but as my colleagues shown. This is just the average for the bituminous coals. For lignite and peat have a lower value of heat content, while anthracite has a higher heat content. It's difficult to understand because this is not the metric system. What is this? What does this mean? Okay, I have the converter next. Let's see. Okay. I hope you got the numbers. It's not very much. It's not very important, I would say. The ones cost better. No problem. So 1 gallon, it's about 3.79 liters, while 1 cubic foot is about 28.3 liters. And 1 quart, which is a very interesting measure, it's equal to 128 cubic feet, which is about 3.62 cubic meters. What heat? Heat is part of, it's studied by a branch of physics called thermodynamics, which studies not only heat, also work and temperature, and it's related to energy, radiation, and physical properties of matter. We cannot talk about thermodynamics without speaking about their laws, right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So, before further ado, can anyone at least guess how many laws of thermodynamics there are?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How many laws of
I-
thermodynamics there are?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Can anyone? Just guess. Say a number.
3.
3, I'll say 3.
3.
17.
Walked on 3. All right. It's wrong. It's not 3. It's actually 4.
How was that?
I was close.
Why? Many get it wrong because it actually starts from the 0. It goes up to the 3rd law. But yeah, it starts from 0. So, starting from 0, the 0th law, it states, let me just guess, what it says, let's move back.
Yeah,
Ah,
much better.
Isto é bilíngue, por isso posso só.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yes, yes. Yes, sim. Yes. Alright, if two systems are each in thermal equilibrium with a third, they're also in thermal equilibrium with each other. This is the 0 law. 0. And you can see it simplified on the screen by this magnificent dish. I say, or just, wherever from, I already said this before. When they are in thermal equilibrium, they are green, you can see that the temperatures of those areas are not connected, they're in thermal equilibrium. So it's very straightforward, in my opinion. So let's move on. The first law. Let's do this again. Okay. The first law states, in a process without transfer of matter, the exchange in internal energy, delta U, shown here, there, yeah, of a thermodynamic system is equal to the energy gained as heat, Q, less the thermodynamic work, W, done by the system on its surroundings. Okay. For processes that include transfer of matter, a further statement is needed also. We do accounts of the respective fiducial reference states of the systems when two systems, which may be of different chemical composition, initially separated only by impermeable wall and otherwise isolated, are combined into a new system by the thermodynamic operation of removal of the wall. And as you can see here, U0 denotes the internal energy of the combined system, and U1 and U2 denote the internal energy of the respective separated systems. Alright, compared to the previous one, some more complex, complicated. It is not. It's not. It's basically the universal law of conservation, which states that nothing can be created or destroyed. It only transforms or moves, dislocates. It's very straightforward. I'm not going to talk more about it. Alright, moving on. Second law. Yeah, I go again. Heat cannot spontaneously flow from a cold location to a hotter location, and that the total entropy of an isolated system, can never decrease over time and is constant if and only if all processes are reversible. Isolated systems spontaneously evolve towards thermodynamic equilibrium, the state with maximum entropy. For this one, I think it's better to show than to tell. So you can see it here. I hope you can understand what is happening here. This refrigerator, very simple, and you can see it also. What opens the things in here? It's similar to the first one. Also going to point out that this the S is for the entropy, as mentioned, while the delta Q is heat, that's right, and fraction by the temperature, that's the T. Alright, let's move on to the final law, the third law. Alguém tem problemas de epilepsia?
Já é tarde, exato.
Já é tarde.
Pelo preto.
I don't want to cause very hazardous, but I'm very sorry. You may look away now. The third law states, as the temperature of a system approaches absolute zero, all processes cease and the entropy of the system approaches a minimum value. So, this is a very special case. It only applies to absolute zero, which is 0 Kelvin, minus 273 Celsius. It's very cold, obviously. And it doesn't really apply for currently for our projects. Perhaps I'll mention it in the future. I'll get in more details, but for now, you'll be as this. I have it. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, do not pass. So, we know that. By knowing these laws, anything related to fuels will be way easier to understand and to mess with in the future. Now back to where we left. We can pass. The use of fuels led us to innovate and create, thus, create, no, evolve, of course, evolve. Thus changing our daily lives through generations. Our habits kept changing in such a way that, nowadays, anytime someone uses wood as fuel, such for eating or cooking, most people perhaps would think of it as a vintage or a primal way of doing it. With the technology of nowadays, we can reach we can use all the efficient fuels, as I say, or all the means for those kinds of tasks, such as natural gas or simply electricity that is provided in our houses. Actually, in the most developed countries, a significant portion of people barely have any contacts with fossil fuels, perhaps even ever in their lives. Because of the utilization of electricity for almost everything, certain things we would have called fuels have become more like energy sources than anything. Anyways, that doesn't mean we aren't dependent on fossil fuels. On the contrary, because of the global needs of it in every nation, a commercial dependency with the most natural fossil fuel abundant deposits countries. You can pass. Yeah. Exactly. Where was I? As much. Simply because of the lack of regional sources in the nation's territories. This caused economic globalization, and also through the brains of the biggest vendors, a cultural globalization also in the fuel industry and commerce. In here, as we can see, oil, as well in many others products, oil is the most demanding resource across the world. Just imagine the effects that it would cause if, for some reason, one of these resources would run out. It will definitely, I think we all know what will happen. It will be very dramatic and definitely catastrophic. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let me see. Yes, of course. They are a priority for the world's economy and also for our daily lives. I think we have reached the conclusion.
So we have now reached the end of the presentation. I hope you all enjoyed this because we have too much job to work to make this job because it's not so easily to take this information, okay? And if you couldn't tell, this is the only first part of one of the big projects around fuels and the history, okay? We can say that we learned a lot of things and it's still counting. The next part will feature more details on our currently recent fuels. Besides fossil fuels and about the upcoming revolutionary fuel, plasma and the fusion energy. There will also be a secret bonus, which will definitely give our project some visual enhancement or something. Anyways, thank you very much to being attending to this job. Okay, it's a presentation, and is this